And this president doesn't have good faith disagreement with any orders. He does not care. He is a lawless criminal. And we have basically a criminal regime. And if you believe that they are going to abide by court orders, they're not going to do it. They're already probably trying to slide around the court orders. He's not a normal man. He is a narcissist, a pathological narcissist, a malignant narcissist, a narcissistic sociopath. You can use any of those terms interchangeably. He is panicked and terrified. And narcissists live in panic and terror that their true selves, their true inadequacies will be revealed to the world. So they create this false image of themselves, and they lie and they brag and they say things about themselves that aren't true, to e.g. George Santos. And at the same time, they want to make themselves the center of attention. So yes, he is, absolutely.
Donald Trump didn't see this ambush coming, not from his enemies, but from inside his own political DNA. On live TV, George Conway, husband to Trump's most loyal advisor, ripped through the former president's legacy like a surgeon with nothing left to lose. No cheap shots, no political theater, just a ruthless dissection of Trump's lies, rage, and unraveling mind. Conway didn't attack with emotion. He attacked with evidence. And for the first time in years, Trump's defense mechanisms collapsed in real time. His reaction? A digital breakdown. Conway didn't just challenge Trump's credibility. He targeted his psychological foundation. And what he exposed wasn't just corruption. It was instability at the core of America's most dangerous man.
He can't help himself but emotionally react to things. But one of the things that he's a narcissistic sociopath. That's the thing everyone has to kind of get used to. It's the reason why you cannot normalize him. You cannot treat him like a normal human being, because he's not. He is unwell. And that's why he can't follow. He's not going to be able to follow his lawyer's directions. That's why, he played right into the plaintiff's hands in the E. Jean Carroll case. They're trying to show basically he's a jerk. And what does he do? He acts like a jerk right in front of the jury. He shows disrespect for the jury. And, the fact of the matter is he's saying, oh, none of this ever happened. Well, okay, where's your testimony?
Conway's words were more than a rebuke. They were a warning to the country. Trump is not just unfit to lead, he's incapable of functioning under scrutiny. Narcissism, sociopathy, pathological vengeance, these weren't insults. They were diagnoses. And the reaction? Terrifying. Trump didn't respond with logic. He responded with panic. Truth Social lit up like a flare. Not with strategy, but with unfiltered desperation. Conway had bypassed Trump's media armor and gone straight for the core. The man who once manipulated entire news cycles was now frantically trying to hold the narrative together with all-caps tweets and personal attacks. But the damage was done. Conway didn't accuse Trump of breaking laws. He accused him of breaking reality, and millions believed him.
The other thing that he did was to show that this is his modus operandi. He intends to, he's willing to use the threat of violence or to incite violence in order to coerce government officials to either forego enforcing the law against him or to, violate the law as he sought to have Pence and members of Congress do on January 6th.
This wasn't a Democrat calling Trump unhinged. It was a conservative, a top-tier legal mind, someone who once stood at the edge of Trump's orbit and walked away disturbed. Conway didn't come for cheap headline. He came with receipts. He described Trump not as a political figure, but as a chaos engine, unable to coexist with functioning institutions. From the courts to Congress, Conway argued, Trump didn't just clash with systems, he corrupted them. Every cabinet shakeup, every baseless lawsuit, every dictator he praised, it all formed a pattern, not of leadership, but of destruction. And as Conway mapped it out like a prosecutor in a closing argument, the public realized something sickening. None of this was accidental. It was strategy.
Stage 3 is basically where we are ignoring laws and running roughshod over laws. They're basically refusing to spend money appropriated by Congress, which is against the law. The law requires the president to spend money. The president can't not spend the money that's been allocated for particular subjects. And you've got this guy who's not been appointed lawfully under the Constitution.
Let's talk about that.
Musk. Yep. And so that's stage 3. Stage 4 is going to be well, these courts are telling me not to obey orders. Why should I? I don't want to obey the law, so why am I obeying the courts? And stage 4 is metastasis. Stage 4 is when democracy can die, and the rule of law can die, and constitutionalism can die. And we unless something happens radically, I can't see how we don't get to stage 4, because the logical path that they are taking, which is that the law doesn't apply to us and nobody can enforce the law against us.
Yeah. But Conway wasn't finished. He dragged into daylight the one part of Trump's life the media rarely touches with precision: his marriage. Melania, the silent first lady, became the center of a metaphor Conway used to destroy Trump's image. He described their relationship not as partnership, but as performance, a hollow PR campaign masked as unity. Every distant glance, every forced smile, a mirror to Trump's leadership, manufactured, soulless, crumbling. The reaction? Lost it. Melania went radio silent, and Conway didn't back off. He doubled down. He wasn't just exposing dysfunction. He was cracking the illusion of control that Trump had weaponized for years. And as it fell apart on screen, millions saw it. The emperor wasn't just naked, he was broken.
You've got the sociopathy, the narcissism, the pathological narcissism, and the Machiavellianism, and then the sadism. He wants to see people suffer. He wants to see them squeal, including the people who voted for him.
Trump's spiral wasn't just visible. It was public, frantic, and deeply revealing. He unleashed post after post, lashing out at Conway, the media, the courts, anyone who dared echo the truth. But Conway didn't respond with fire. He responded with cold, legal precision. He argued that Trump's tantrums aren't symptoms. They're tactics, designed to distract, deflect, and delay justice. Conway called out the manipulation for what it was: an aging strongman strategy collapsing under the weight of real accountability. The man who once dominated headlines with spectacle was now drowning in silence. Conway's message landed hard. Trump isn't preparing for a political comeback. He's preparing for legal consequences. And the more he resists, the more guilty he looks.
They don't want to obey laws. They don't want to obey rules. They don't think they apply to them. And Donald Trump has no moral conscience and no empathy. He does not care about anybody else other than Donald Trump, which is why in his first term he said, Article 2 lets me do whatever I want, Article 2 of the Constitution. The first Trump term, which I call Shit Show 1, was an assault on the rule of law, but it was only like it was like cancer. It was like a stage 1, maybe stage 2. We got to stage 2 right around January 6th. And he was a threat to the rule of law. And then he went into remission.
Conway didn't just aim at Trump. He lit up the entire MAGA machine. He called out the lawyers, lobbyists, and enablers who stand silent as Trump turns American justice into a weapon. He exposed how loyalty, not law, had become the currency of survival. And he warned that every time Trump escapes consequences, it isn't a victory. It's a warning shot to democracy. Conway wasn't talking about policy differences. He was describing a system infected by fear, where even legal institutions flinch under political pressure. The result? A slow-motion collapse of accountability. And for Trump, that collapse isn't collateral damage. It's the goal. Conway laid it bare. Trump doesn't want to fix the system. He wants to break it so badly, no one else can fix it.
After Donald Trump won in 2016, your name was floated as someone who might work in his administration. You turned that down. And
I was offered the job of head of the Civil Division of the Department of Justice. And I filled out all the forms. They ran my background check, and I was interviewing people who were going to work underneath me. I was sort of far along there, and then I just started having this queasy feeling like I don't really want to work in this administration, because what I saw was a shit show and a dumpster fire. And I just got to the point where I just couldn't do it, and so I didn't. And I was one of the best decisions I'd ever made. Okay, I admit I was wrong to support Donald Trump in 2016. I was horribly wrong. It was a horrible exercise in judgment. I knew better. I should have known better.
Trump's greatest threat has never been the media or even the courts. It's people like George Conway, conservatives with credibility, insiders with receipts. And Conway is relentless. He doesn't just criticize Trump. He dissects him like a failed prototype. Narcissism, paranoia, rage, all laid out in clinical detail. He frames Trump not as an anomaly, but as the product of years of Republican silence and cowardice. Conway's takedown wasn't personal. It was surgical, and that's what makes it lethal, because Trump can scream fake news all day long. But when a lifelong conservative says this man is psychologically unfit for power, people listen. Conway isn't flipping sides. He's drawing a line, and he's daring others in the GOP to stop pretending they don't see the cliff Trump is driving toward.
But I gotta get to this. There's a whole chapter in the book, which you know I've read.
Yes.
But George doesn't tweet. When he first tweeted, you thought he'd been hacked.
Yes, I did. I literally did, because Sean Spicer came to me and said, did you know about this? And it was a George Conway tweet 5 days after George had taken his name out of consideration for a very big job he had accepted with President Trump to head up the civil division of the Department of Justice. George had already gone to see his office. He was already interviewing staff for that position. He was all in, like I was, for Trump-Pence. And I said to Sean, but George doesn't tweet. You know, in 2016, known as the year of the tweet, George Conway sent 0 tweets. He's now sent over 100,000. He can change his mind about Donald Trump. This is a free country. George owes no allegiance to a political party or a presidential candidate. But his vows to me, I feel, were broken because we were all in. You know, I also write in the book, Michael, that people like to say without Kellyanne Conway, Donald Trump would not have gotten elected president of the United States. That's debatable. But without George Conway urging, if not insisting, me, his wife, to take that campaign management job and helping out more with the kids and with home, I don't think I could have been the campaign manager to the level I was.
And then came the part that hit closest to home. Conway brought his own family into the conversation, not for drama, for truth. He spoke about his former wife, Kellyanne, Trump's top defender, and the painful reality of watching her justify behavior that horrified. It wasn't just a political difference, it was emotional warfare. And then came their daughter, Claudia, who publicly rebelled against the Trump machine while still a teenager, using TikTok to scream the truth millions were too scared to say. Conway didn't exploit their pain. He honored it. He made it clear. This wasn't about politics anymore. It was personal. It was about protecting the next generation from a leader who doesn't care who he breaks to protect himself.
Basically, my mom is Kellyanne Conway. She works for Donald Trump, and she just tweeted that she is leaving the White House. And my dad tweeted that he's leaving the Lincoln Project, which is basically Republicans against Trump. So they're leaving their jobs and like whatever, which is like for me. So I tweeted about my emancipation yesterday, which is kind of just a coincidence, which is really frustrating because my parents were talking about divorce and they were supposed to get divorced, but I'm assuming that now they're not because they're scared of me emancipating myself, which is really unfair, but I guess that's life. And now their case is going to be a lot stronger against mine because, you know, they left for family reasons. But I can tell you, being their daughter, they don't give a shit. Like, they don't give a shit. My dad doesn't care about me. He's never cared about me. He probably doesn't even know my middle name. Which is really sad, but it's true. You know, he never really cared about me my whole life. He always belittled me when I was younger. My dad physically abused me a lot, right here in this very room. And my mom, the same thing with my mom. You know, my mom got me arrested. You know, she's very, very physically abusive, very, very verbally abusive. I've been belittled and badgered my entire life, and I just said this to them, you know.
While Trump floods social media with caps lock tantrum, Conway moves with eerie calm. His commentary isn't fire, it's ice. Each statement lands like a legal indictment, not a hot take. He pointed to Trump's pattern. Surround yourself with loyalists, ignore experts, punish dissent. And the most damning part? It's working again. Conway warned that Trump's inner circle is already being rebuilt, not for leadership, but for loyalty. Not to govern, but to obey. And if he returns to power, Conway predicts, it won't be chaos by accident, it'll be chaos by design. Conway isn't warning of what Trump might do. He's showing us what he's already done and asking how many more cracks democracy can take before the foundation gives way.
One of the things that is sort of interesting about the Trump people is they're not loyal to each other, and not even to Trump in some ways. I don't mean the Trump voters, but I mean the people around him. They are all as self-interested as him. They are all trying to make money by acting as gatekeepers to Trump.
The scariest truth Conway revealed wasn't about Trump. It was about us, about a nation so bombarded by scandal fatigue that we've stopped reacting. Conway said it bluntly, Trump has conditioned America to accept dysfunction as normal, to laugh at authoritarian threats, to treat lies like strategy. But this isn't satire anymore, it's survival. Conway argued that the longer we tolerate Trump's behavior, the more we become complicit in his delusions. And as Trump slips deeper into legal danger and emotional instability, the danger multiplies. Because a cornered narcissist doesn't surrender, he scorches earth. Conway's message wasn't subtle. This isn't the end of Trump's chaos. It's the moment before he pulls the whole building down.
Tara Schreckman wants to know from you, George, do you expect Trump to target you and other staff of the Lincoln Project? And if so, do you have a defense plan?
I don't have a defense plan other than whatever he pulls up is going to be meritless. My finances are simple. It won't, I don't fear him. And I think one of the things that that people don't quite understand about Trump, but they really should, is the fact that he's a bully and he wants to pick on people who won't fight back.
The media often treats Trump like a circus act, loud, chaotic, absurd. But George Conway treated him like something far darker, a case study in psychological decay. He didn't yell, he didn't mock. He laid out Trump's behavior like a therapist unveiling a dangerous diagnosis: narcissistic collapse, emotional volatility, compulsive lying. Conway didn't say Trump was unstable. He showed us what instability looks like in power. A man addicted to attention, allergic to accountability, and incapable of empathy. The world laughed when Trump talked about sharks and electrocution. Conway didn't. He said it was symptomatic, the sign of a mind in free fall. And once you stop laughing, you realize this man had nuclear code, and he wants them back.
You don't want to diagnose him, but I think if you look at the diagnostic criteria for narcissistic personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder, he fits every single one of them. It's like the criteria were made to describe him. And I think what we saw with this tweet yesterday is that last final collapse of Donald Trump's mental state. I mean, you think about it, those were like 50, 60, 70,000 people in the aggregate in five rallies in different states. That's loopier than saying that the moon landings were staged, because there were tens of thousands of people were there. To think that is crazy, and to try to sell it to people is just as crazy. He's done. His brain is fried.
Conway's most haunting warning? Trump doesn't learn. He escalates. Every indictment, every investigation, every scandal doesn't humble him. It hardens him. Conway likened Trump's behavior to a child staring into a funhouse mirror, seeing only what flatters him and smashing what doesn't. But this child controls millions of voters, hundreds of lawmakers, and still casts a long shadow over American institutions. Conway pointed to Trump's firings, Comey, Sessions, Esper, not as impulsive decisions, but as a pattern of erasing anything that challenges his dominance. Not loyalty? You're gone. Not worshipful? You're a traitor. Trump doesn't build teams, he builds echo chambers. And Conway's message was piercing. If Trump ever gets back inside the system, he won't make the same mistakes. He'll make worse ones on purpose.
He's a sociopath, and one of the things about sociopaths is that they don't plan, they don't think, they just emote, and they're impulsive, and they act on their whims and impulses and the last person who talked to them. And that's why and then also they have the power, they love the power, the feeling of power that they get when they say, I'm turning this on, I'm turning this off, I'm turning the lights out, I'm turning the lights on, I'm raising tariffs, I'm lowering tariffs, I'm telling everybody in Tehran, 10 million people to evacuate, I'm telling them they're safe for now. Okay? He gets off on that, and then he gets bored with what he said yesterday. And of course, he doesn't necessarily remember what he says or care what he says yesterday. So tomorrow's going to be something else.
And then Conway hit the most terrifying nerve of all, the Republican Party itself. He called it out as complicit, not just silent, but submissive. Conway argued that Trump is no longer the disease. He's the symptom of something deeper, a party too scared to speak the truth, too addicted to power to stand for principle. Every time Republicans excuse Trump's behavior, Conway said, they reinforce the lie that this is normal. that this is politics, but it isn't. It's moral collapse in real time. And while Trump keeps talking about draining swamps, Conway said the truth is far worse. Trump doesn't drain anything. He floods it with loyalists, silences dissent, and then watches the country sink under the weight of its own cowardice.
This is Donald Trump leading the Republican Party off the cliff. This is a man for whom there is no bottom, and Republicans are just afraid to call him out. He's saying we're in the middle of this war where Putin, who can't be trusted for a moment, who murders political opponents, who slaughters women and children, and Donald Trump is focused on what? Himself? Because he wants to get revenge for losing the 2020 election. He says, okay, let's see their dirt on Hunter Biden. I wonder someday that maybe we won't have a president in Russia who actually acts in the best interest of the Russian people and behaves himself before the world. Maybe President Navalny. I mean, pray to God that somehow that could happen. And maybe we'll see the files on Donald Trump. I think those would be interesting.
What made Conway's takedown so unforgettable wasn't the facts. It was the fear underneath them. Fear that Trump's influence hasn't weakened. It's mutated. He no longer needs rallies to spread his message. He has built a system of rage, denial, and tribalism that functions with or without him. Conway warned that even if Trump is convicted, even if he disappears from the ballot, the movement he unleashed will still be here, louder, angrier, and more dangerous. This wasn't a warning about Trump the man. It was a warning about Trumpism, the ideology of vengeance, victimhood, and delusion. And Conway didn't sugarcoat it. If America doesn't confront this sickness now, the next version won't just be louder. It'll be smarter, meaner,
Absolutely.
and less obvious.
I do think that. I think it was most propitious timing. I think this needed to be done no matter who the Democratic nominee was, for the simple reason that Donald Trump has been getting basically this easy pass, double standard on his behavior, because we've seen so much of it, and it's basically been normalized, even though it's completely bizarre. We almost kind of don't bat an eyelash at him talking about sharks and electrocution and Hannibal Lecter. I mean, he's been doing crazy stuff like that for years. So he has this weird advantage, and that's part of the advantage. The other part of the advantage is that people are afraid to talk about mental health issues of any sort, lest they give offense or they don't want to stigmatize people. But I mean, this is just so different. I mean, this is the man, the question, the mental stability of somebody who would have control of the second largest nuclear arsenal on the planet. I mean, this is just, you just can't look at it the same way.
As Conway wrapped his broadcast, he didn't offer comfort. He offered clarity. Trump isn't the end of the story. He's a test of how far a nation will bend before it breaks. Conway said Trump's greatest gift isn't leadership, it's illusion. He's not a mastermind, he's a mirror. He reflects back whatever the public will tolerate. And if we keep tolerating the lies, the tantrums, the lawlessness, then the fault isn't just his, it's ours. Conway ended not with outrage, but with a dare. Look around. Look inward. Ask yourself if this is the legacy we want to explain to the next generation. Because Trump isn't backing down, he's doubling down. And what happens next depends on who's still willing to say enough.